Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Nutrition Nutz, where we explore the latest information on nutritional science, wellness trends, and information on cutting edge supplements. This is where you will hear experts in clinical nutrition, healthcare practitioners, researchers, and supplement industry experts discussing today's most important healthcare issues. I'm your host, Dr. Phil Pappas. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist, cognitive researcher, and psychologist. We would like to thank our sponsor, Holly Hill Health Foods and HollyHillVitamins.com, the place for great selection, service, and great pricing. Use coupon code NUTZ, that's NUTZ, for 15% off, and remember restrictions may apply. This is Dr. Phil Pappas, and welcome to the Holly Hill Podcast. And today we've got a great show for you. You don't want to miss this one because we're going to learn a lot from a great professional that, she and I put this, we started trying to put this show together maybe 3 months ago, and we finally got it today. So I don't want to waste any more time. So let's start by introducing our guest, Maria Maroney, and she is an integrative nutritionist, and she's been in the field for decades, and she knows the retail side of the business, and she knows the practitioner professional side of the business because she's been in those doctors' offices and she knows what's going on. She has a master's degree in clinical nutrition and integrative health and is a certified nutrition specialist, and she is registered with the American Nutrition Association. She is a believer in food first, which I think most nutritionists are, but she also pays a lot of attention to the nutraceutical side of the business. She believes in the positive effect of the right supplements on human health. She's a skilled trainer, educator, and without any further ado, I want to bring her in. And Maria, go ahead, tell us what I missed in your introduction.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I think the only thing you missed was that I'm the national educator for Natural Factors, which is a brand that I truly trust and believe in. But yeah, thanks for that beautiful introduction.
Sure. And you know what? I was going to ask you right now, your position with Natural Factors, but you beat me to the question. So, and that's great. We have quite a few educators on, and Natural Factors is a huge professional nutraceutical company in this business. So I would say let's all pay attention because I'm sure you're going to give us some great information. But you and I spoke about this show, and one thing that both of us, I think, were interested in was understanding, and of course, lots of people use the product, but we need to understand, or we're hoping to understand, CoQ10 and why it's such an important supplement for a lot of people. So I'm going to let you kind of introduce the subject.
Sure. It is. It's a fascinating subject. It's been on the shelves for a long time now. And I think we mostly know it for heart health, right?
Exactly.
I think it was sometime in the late 1950s that it was discovered. So what is it? It's a vitamin-like compound, and it every cell in the body needs it in order to make energy. So the interesting thing about CoQ10 is that it peaks in our 20s and then decreases from that point onward. So it's really important to keep our batteries fully charged throughout life. And so that's why CoQ10 has become so popular. Now, when it first made it to the marketplace, we just had that ubiquinone form. We called it CoQ10 or coenzyme Q10, right? And that was, I can't remember what year that was. but that's got to be a good 25 years ago already.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, and I think it was Dr. Michael Murray that kind of did the initial research there for the nutraceutical industry, and he really became a big proponent of that.
Yes.
And then Dr. Sinatra up in Canada, he became a real proponent of CoQ10 for heart health. So it's been on the shelves for years and years and years, and it's suddenly started to get a whole lot more attention. I think you'll agree.
I absolutely agree, yes. I also, I was under the impression that CoQ10, or at least the ubiquinol, was kind of discovered in possibly liver. That might
Oh, that's
be
a good question.
where it was, but it doesn't
Yeah,
matter
I think you're right.
because
I think you're right about that.
but it had to be synthesized because we wouldn't have enough liver to go around. So, um, the guys in the lab did a beautiful job coming up with CoQ10, and it's become a huge product with lots and lots of studies. How many studies do you think are out there on CoQ10 and maybe heart
Oh
disease?
gosh, I wouldn't even want to hazard a guess at that because it's been in circulation for so many years. But here's the really interesting thing. So it came on. So CoQ10 is the name of the molecule, right? Coenzyme Q10 is the name of the molecule. But molecules, and this might be a little sciencey, but we're gonna jump in with it. Why not? We're gonna go all in, right?
I think our audience appreciates that. Sure.
Right. There's two forms. So we have the ubiquinone form, which is the oxidized form, and then we have the ubiquinol form, which is the reduced form, right? So what happened was CoQ10 came out in its oxidized form, and I guess they decided that ubiquinone was too strange of a word, so we're just going to call it by its main molecule name of CoQ10. And so that became the thing that was available for many years, CoQ10.
Yes.
Well, now, years later, the ubiquinol form, which is the reduced form, came along. And so they called it ubiquinol. But ubiquinol is actually CoQ10 as well. So it's clear as mud for the average consumer, right?
Yes.
But they're two different forms of the same molecule. So one is the oxidized form, the other is reduced form. And so what does that actually mean? It means it's a chemical reaction that happens within cells. It's called reduction and oxidation, or a redox molecule, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that means that what's happening is within the body, the CoQ10 molecule is switching over from ubiquinone to ubiquinol and back and forth again, depending on what the body needs in the different areas where it is in the body, if that makes sense.
Okay. And the two forms aren't necessarily one better than the other, are they?
Well, they are not, because they do different things in the body. So the CoQ10 that we know and love, the ubiquinone, or the oxidized form, is mostly responsible for generating something called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, and that is what? Energy, right?
Exactly.
And the body can't make energy without CoQ10. And this CoQ10, this ubiquinone, has an affinity for the cells in our hearts, also our brains, but the hearts get all the attention. And that's why we always think about it for heart health.
Yes, exactly. And so where do we go with ubiquinol?
So the difference with ubiquinol, so I guess explaining what that does is it's got a little bit of a different function. The ubiquinol form, or the reduced form, which is the less stable form, acts as a powerful antioxidant in the body. So the ubiquinone makes energy, it makes ATP. The ubiquinol is an antioxidant.
And they both do a little bit of each, but they do have that difference. One is specific to the one, and the other is specific. One is specific to energy, and one is specific to other things.
Correct.
Okay.
But here's the thing. So regardless of what form, and maybe we're jumping ahead a little bit, but regardless of what form you take, if you swallow a coenzyme Q10 supplement, whether it's ubiquinone or ubiquinol, in the stomach, which is an acidic environment, it's going to convert to the ubiquinone form. It's going to be what we know as CoQ10 because of the redox reaction. It goes back and forth and back and forth. Now, once it's that's oxidized, right?
Yes.
And then when it goes through the digestive system, right now, it's going to get absorbed into the lymph and into the bloodstream. That's when it gets turned into its ubiquinol form. And in the bloodstream, that's where it's functioning as this powerful antioxidant. Now, down the line, as it starts to, bump up into the again cells and tissues and get absorbed into the cells and the tissues, switches back to its ubiquinone form, so it can help the cells make ATP or energy.
Dare I bring up the term free radicals?
Sure, absolutely. That's exactly what's happening. So, in the bloodstream, we have all these, different free radicals forming. I mean, and actually, let me just say that in the process of the body making energy, ATP energy, we are, we're making in the mitochondria of every single one of those cells, we're making ATP energy, right? We have something like 37 trillion cells in our body at any given time. Each of those cells have thousands of mitochondria assembly lines that are making energy. Some hard-working cells like the heart, they can have as many as 100,000 mitochondria in a single cell. And so inside those cells is something called cellular respiration, right? And so what is that? That's the process of making that energy inside those mitochondria. So in the process of cellular respiration, and that's our body's making every second, it's making those 37 trillion cells are working very hard to make energy. There's a little byproduct that's produced in the making of that ATP energy. So you can think about it like a car driving, right? When you put gas in the car can drive and it gets us places, but there's an exhaust that's produced, right? Same inside our cells. Our cells are creating energy, and there's a little exhaust that's released. That exhaust is what you just said, free radicals. And so the body actually can handle. It also makes antioxidants, endogenous antioxidants within the body that can squelch those free radicals that are made, right? Neutralize them so that they don't do any damage in the body.
Okay.
But we can't adjust for, our bodies can't handle all of the other toxins that we're getting hit with all day long. We get overwhelmed with them, right?
It's an
And
excess, right? Excess of what
exactly.
we can deal with on a cellular level, I guess.
Exactly. And that's where a supplemental CoQ10 or other antioxidants come into play. That's why antioxidants are so important for our health. People think maybe, I take a little bit of vitamin C every day, that'll do it. Nope. We need a lot more help in today's environment with all the pollutants and the plastics and fill in the blank of all the toxins that we deal with every single day.
And I don't think people understand that every time we inhale, we're inhaling a lot of different things. For instance, here on the East Coast, we're inhaling the pollutants from coal-fired electrical plants, and they tend to be high in, have mercury in it and other things that we have to worry about. So yes, we're being bombarded. You can't avoid it. If you inhale, you can't avoid it.
Right.
We can clean up our homes, we can clean up our environments, but it's in the air. So we need things to deal with these.
It's in the air.
Yes, these
It's in our
oxidants.
food. It's in our water supply. It's everywhere. So to expect that we can rely on the antioxidants that our bodies make, the CoQ10 that our body just makes naturally, to handle all of that is short-sighted, shall I say?
Well, let's
We need a lot. We need help.
So let's look at who, like, let's say we have an athlete
Mm-hmm.
and they're semi-professional or a high school athlete that's doing cross country. Why would CoQ10 and which CoQ10 would be better for that athlete, possibly, if we can say that? Why does he need it or she need it?
Mm-hmm.
And which one maybe would be more appropriate?
Well, first, let's talk about why they need it. So that has to do with that CoQ10 ubiquinone form, right? That
Hmm.
supports ATP production. So most athletes are looking to get more out of their workouts, right? So a lot of them are using pre-workouts, and pre-workouts usually are caffeinated, right? That's what gives them that mm, boost, right? That
Yes.
energy boost. But caffeine, it works by stimulating the central nervous system, and that's usually a short-term spike, and it's usually followed by a crash. And it rarely do these pre-workouts offer any support for recovery, right?
Yes.
So with CoQ10, the energy source is the mitochondria of the cell where ATP or energy is being created. So if you're supporting your mitochondria, this will produce a more lasting energy all day long. So that's like the crux of it. So why are they using it? They need more of that currency, right? That raw energy for their muscles because they need this for bigger workouts.
Yes.
So, and here's what's happening. So, um, our metabolic rate gets enhanced when we're exercising. There's a rise in body temperature, and the pH within the cells decreases. So that can lead to higher than usual levels of oxidative stress, right? More free radicals than normal, because exercising muscles produce larger amounts of free radicals than muscles that are at rest. So
Mm-hmm.
now we go to the antioxidant side. Antioxidants neutralize those free radicals, right? So which form is better? It doesn't really much matter because the body is going to switch it back and forth because of those redox reactions.
Okay. So,
Make sense?
yes, but now we talked about an athlete. And what if you have someone who has had maybe uh, health problems, particularly cardiac problems,
Sure.
and they don't walk, maybe they walk around their house, but
Hmm.
it's a different type of person, isn't it?
Right. The opposite end of the spectrum.
But they still need something like a CoQ10.
They sure
Why
do.
do they need it?
Well, because again, if they're just living in a normal world, right? They're still being bombarded by free radicals that we just talked about in the foods that we eat, in the air that we breathe, in the water that we drink, in the blue light that we're getting from our screens, right? They need all of that antioxidant support for just living in a modern world, right? And so again, with an athlete who's taking the CoQ10, the body might find that it needs more of it to make ATP energy, right? Whereas somebody who's not necessarily an athlete, maybe somebody who is, uh, less active and maybe older and maybe doesn't have great digestion, right? That person is still needs it, but they're going to need more of the antioxidant support. Um, so which one should you take is a really tough question because again, um, which is the which is the which form is the body going to utilize it in, right? So
Yes.
I guess it's important because it's important to know that it's all going to get turned into or predominantly get turned into the ubiquinone form in the stomach when you swallow it. So the ubiquinone form, the CoQ10, is a more stable form, and it's usually a little more affordable, and it's a great place to start. Now, if you're finding that you're still not getting benefit from it, maybe you're somebody that has trouble with digestion, and you might then want the ubiquinol form. But I also think if folks have already been taking the ubiquinol form and it's working for them, there's no reason to switch. You know, the
Exactly.
body knows what it needs, and it's going to turn it into what it needs. So whatever it's really a um, with most supplements, it's trial and error to find the form that you best respond to.
Yes, but you could always just start with ubiquinol or the other one, ubiquinone,
Hmm. With
and
ubiquinone,
they're
CoQ10, yeah.
probably going to do the job. So I ask
Hmm.
my patients or my clients and
Hmm.
customers if I'm out on the floor with people, and I am on a daily basis. So I try to stay up, with their questions and their issues. So you can ask some questions. What brings you in for it?
Hmm.
Have you had a heart attack? And then there's the the big category that we haven't touched on, are you on a statin drug? And I'm sure you can
Hmm.
elaborate on that.
Well, yes, the statins deplete not only statins, but also some antidepressants, which I'm not sure everybody knows. Most people know that statin drugs can deplete levels of CoQ10 in the body. And I mentioned before, we peak at the production in our 20s. So as we age, we're getting less and less of the CoQ10. And I will say, absolutely, there is not enough that the body makes naturally to support if you're on a statin drug to replenish what the statin drug is using. Um, so you definitely, if you're on a statin drug, without a doubt, you should be on a CoQ10 supplement to replenish those levels in your body.
That is so important, and I heard it so many times where people are having some muscle pain. That's always a bad,
Fine.
yeah.
Hmm.
And we start them on CoQ10, and very often the muscle pain subsides, and they do rather well. So
Oh, that's
I had, the doctor sent me in for CoQ10 because I'm on a statin. Absolutely. He did the
oh,
right thing. So we make
and
sure
that's
we
the
do that.
wonderful thing
Hmm.
that the doctors are on board with CoQ10. So they actually are aware of it. They're not aware of all the supplements that we feel in the health food store business are helpful, but they certainly do know CoQ10, which is wonderful. So they will send their patients to health food stores to purchase that. Actually, that brings me to a really uh, something that I wanted to actually mention, why brands matter. Because when a
Yes.
doctor is making a recommendation, doctors are learning about this stuff, which is great, but they don't really know brands in the natural food space like we do. And so here's the thing about CoQ10. CoQ10 can crystallize if it's not protected. And that's why your brand matters. So once those crystals form, CoQ10 can't be absorbed anymore. So that great buy that you might have gotten online from some brand that you never heard of, or that, inexpensive grocery store brand that you may have picked up at a low price may or may not be able to be absorbed. So it's like gambling, right? So as a consumer, you really should know which brands that you should trust. So I'm going to do a plug for Natural Factors right now. Brands like Natural Factors direct source our ingredients. So what does that mean? It means that regardless of the country of origin or the reputation, so sometimes a lot of people will get freaked out if you mention that an ingredient comes from, I don't know, China, right? But no
Exactly.
matter
Yes.
who we buy from, the suppliers that we do business with are more likely to have full supply chain transparency and rigorous quality control and ethical sourcing and reliability when it comes to the delivery of ingredients because Natural Factors insists on that. Natural Factors is a Canadian company. We're like the number 1, 2 brand up in Canada. Now here in the U.S., I think we're number 5 or 6, and a lot of people haven't heard of us because you only find us in health food stores. We don't go into mass market. We stay in our lane. Um,
However, we've got
mhm.
3 gondolas of backup for you, as well as what's on the shelf from Natural Factors. And,
Oh, that's
I mean, you have so many products. Right now, the quercetins are flying out of the store for allergies, and it's mostly yours.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
Yes.
Well, you know what? But it's a brand you can trust. So here's why. Here's why being Canadian, a Canadian company is so makes a difference. Um, in the U.S., supplements are regulated as food, so there's a certain set of standards for that. And in Canada, supplements are regulated as over-the-counter medication. So think about what it takes for a drug to get on the shelf in the US, the rigor that it has to go through, right? You can't just decide that you want to formulate something and then put it online and sell it as a OTC, right? And that's
Exactly.
the rigor it goes through up in Canada in order to get on shelf.
So,
So we have just
mhm,
much higher standards for supplements in Canada than there are in the US.
can I
So
back up
right
for
off the
mhm. Can I back up just for a second?
Sure.
You talked about the CoQ10 crystallizing,
Hmm.
and of course, you absorb less of it. I'm a former 20-year pharmacologist, and
Oh, there you go.
no drug and no supplement is 100. Well, I don't know about no, but I can't imagine a drug or so. Yeah, I couldn't tell you a supplement or a drug that's 100% absorbed. It always
Correct.
has limits. So if this crystallizes on the shelf at a warehouse somewhere, um, you absorb even less. So it's so
Exactly.
important to have a fresh um, product with integrity.
So the source is so important. The brand is so important, so much more so than the great buy that somebody might have gotten online.
And this Ishura, did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Ishura. Um, this is a third party testing. So tell us more about Ishura because I'm fascinated by it.
Yes, I was too when I started with the brand. So Ishura is a third party entity that verifies our quality. So they're Canada's only independent testing organization. So they're third party, and the Ishura standards meet and exceed the most stringent qualities in the world. They bypass even Australia's therapeutic goods administration requirements, and those are the highest requirements in the world. So Ishura tests for over 800 different potential contaminants, which, maybe folks that are listening don't understand the impact of that. But they're testing for over 700 pesticides alone, including glyphosate and Roundup. Um, so, or I should say, including glyphosate, which is Roundup. They don't test for Roundup.
Okay. So I've spent time in a lab, and I know that one lab's testing is not the same as another lab's testing. In a sense, they're doing a good job. I'm not saying they aren't, but
Sure.
they have a broader spectrum of tests in some labs
Yeah.
than they do in other labs, and you
And the
need to know
numbers
that.
Yep, and the numbers have been increasing. So when I first came on board, I've been with Natural Factors for 2 years now, and when I first came on board, I was told that some of the folks that have been around a long, long time said that when they first started testing, I sure at first started testing, that number was 400 contaminants, and then it became 600 contaminants, and now it's 800. They're constantly looking, so they're testing for radiation, which is in our and hormones, which is in our water supply. They're
Mhm.
testing for you know uh, microbiologicals. They're testing for trying to think off the top of my head,
Well,
GMOs, of course.
mhm. All the first line things,
Yeah,
that would affect someone putting something in their mouth every day.
heavy metals. Heavy
Yes.
metals is such an important one. So that's the thing. We do a full audit of all the suppliers that we use. Um, Once the raw materials are brought in, we do a full material evaluation. So we're testing for identity, for potency of active. We're testing for contaminants and stability. That's natural factor. We do that testing internally. And then when those raw materials come in, before it ever goes into a single machine to become a supplement, we send out the raw materials for that iSure testing so that once we get the approval, it comes out of quarantine, and that's when we go to work making it a supplement. But here's the cool part. We test 4 times throughout the process of creating a supplement, including final product testing, to make sure that what we say is on the label is actually in the tablet or capsule or soft gel. It's very important.
And it's an extra cost that Natural Factors seems to be, pretty eager to include in their system, and they seem to go all out and almost, they took the big leap here, and they are making sure that that product that we're selling a customer is what it says it is, and that to me is very important.
I agree 100%. It's one of the reasons why I was attracted to come to work with the folks at Natural Factors because their standards and their integrity are just uh, unmatched, in my opinion. it's a family-owned company, and the company will never be sold to one of these big multinational corporations. We are always it's in there are family members in place ready to take over, uh, and the company will always be a family-owned company and always focused on the natural food retailer and the natural food customer, more importantly.
I think when I first started doing this job that I do full time back in 1999, I guess, doing nutritional consults,
Hmm.
working with product. Um, I do a lot of speaking in the community. Um, I was introduced to natural factors right away because you
Hmm.
had such a status in stores. And I would go into stores, and visit just to see. I was learning. And there was that big shelf of natural factor products. And I always thought to myself, wow, this is an elite company. And as the years went by, the company proved that's exactly what they are, really a top-notch company. And I'm actually surprised to hear that they're 5th in sales, as I think you said, in the United States. Maybe at our location, um, they may be in the top 3.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. I think because we're not in mass market, and that's part of it. We've been around since the 1950s, believe it or not. Our owner's name is Roland Gaylor. His dad started the company, and so think about that. 1950s. We're at 2026.
Yes.
That's a
Mhm.
long time to be in, and to be so focused. I've just been so impressed with him as a visionary. So I
Mhm.
think his heart comes through. He cares about every single person that purchases a natural factors product. It's very important to him. So, that's who I wanna support, that's who I wanna buy from.
Well, I think the company did their homework. They've been introducing slowly products for different situations, different
Mhm.
allergies, for instance, are huge right now. And I mentioned we were selling quercetin, but CoQ10 we sell, of course, every day. And you've got all the basic ones also. You have melatonins, you have so many things, so many categories, and you couldn't do that unless you started years ago.
Right.
You can't just bring out product after product like that. That really isn't sustainable. So that's why I have a very good feeling about natural factors. So, um, Maria, I think we've really covered a lot of ground. What else
Mhm.
would you like to say?
Let's see. I think that the key takeaways are really that not just folks that are on statin drugs or antidepressants, those aren't the only people, or people who are struggling with supporting a healthy heart. Those are not the only people that need CoQ10. We're finding that it's becoming more important for athletes, as we spoke about. Um, the CoQ10 is found in every cell, and it's responsible for maintaining cellular energy. It's going to power us throughout our lifetimes, especially as levels decline. So I really think that if you're not already taking CoQ10, that you should really be thinking about adding it to your daily regimen as something that will just help support you in so many different areas of the body. And I think that's the message I would like to leave everyone with.
I think this is great. I think CoQ10 is really underestimated. I always think I spent 5 years running a psychiatric practice as the manager and lead therapist. And it's interesting how someone that may have depression may also have issues with energy and not, functioning the way they should. And when they get a good balanced diet and they get sunlight and they get some exercise and some fresh air, maybe add a CoQ10 for a little energy pickup, and suddenly they're having, maybe they're taking less medication and they're having what I would say a better quality of life. And I think that would
Absolutely.
go with a heart patient too. If you're sitting in a chair and you can't move because you don't have enough energy, And if you can take a CoQ10 and get a little more energy, isn't that an improvement in quality of life?
Absolutely. And that brings up a point I want to just mention about timing. I think with pharmaceutical drugs, we're used to being prescribed something, and then within a few days, maybe a week, having some kind of result from that. And so it's different with supplements. So pharmaceuticals are usually blocking something, right?
Yes.
Whereas supplements are food, right? And so it's going to take the body a little bit longer. So the mitochondria inside of a cell, those little energy sensors, live to be about 100 days old, right? So every 100 days, they're recycled. There is a new mitochondria in its place. So think about 100 days is about 3 solid months. So you're not going to take a supplement for a CoQ10 supplement for a week and expect to have the energy from it. You're going to need to take it, and you're going to probably start to see a little bit of a pickup within about 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. But by the end of 3 months, all of those older mitochondria have been replaced by ones with better energy centers, right? And so it could be a 1 to 3 month. That's what I would give people. I would ask people to, kind of pay attention at where they are today when they start it, and then where they are at month 1, month 2, and month 3, and see where the difference is that way.
The drug companies talk about compliance. If you don't take the product correctly, you're not going to get a result. And I think that carries over to a whole lot of things. If you don't eat well all the time, you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
get good results. If you don't take your supplements a long enough time for them to do what they need, what they're going to do for you,
Mm-hmm.
you don't see the result. And I think a lot of people kind of give up because they expect an instant response, and instant response isn't always the best thing.
Right. And it's not always, some supplements you will, you know, I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head. Actually, quercetin. Quercetin is a good
Quercetin,
one.
yes, good one.
Yeah,
Yes.
you're gonna get the benefit within a couple of days from quercetin. But they're not pharmaceuticals. They're food. They're making changes in the body. And here's the other piece is that the body can't store energy, right? It has to be made constantly. So, just food for thought.
All right, excellent. Maria Maroney. Did I say your name right? I just did, huh?
You did. You
Excellent.
absolutely did.
And I just want to say that we appreciate everything you said today. You are really a great guest. I would love to have you back sometime to talk about maybe another product.
That would be wonderful. I'll look forward to that.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you to our guest. Thank you for listening to our podcast. And this is Dr. Phil Pappas, and I'm wishing you a beautiful day. Thanks to our loyal listeners, and thanks to our sponsor, Holly Hill Health Foods and HollyHillVitamins.com. Don't forget to use coupon code NUTZ, N-U-T-Z, for 15% off. You can reach me with questions and comments at 215-361-7770. Until next time, this is Dr. Phil Pappas wishing you good health.